For more than 7 years now, since the rise to power of the jackass from Macuspana, Lopez Obrador, one of the phrases that he and his movement have drilled into our heads is, "We are on the right side of history." In other words, they set themselves up as a beacon of morality. That discourse from Morena is a political and moral narrative that divides national events between an alleged progressive, transformative, and people-defending bloc. The fourth transformation, in contrast to a neoliberal conservatism that it accuses of corruption, privilege, and submissiveness. But reality, that stubborn reality, over the years has proven right those of us who, from day one, realized the wicked intentions of these so-called defenders of the good and wise people. Let's get to it. Real politics is not done with emotional speeches or catchy phrases for social media. It's done with power, with interests, and above all, with a cold pragmatism that doesn't care about partisan sentimentality. Meanwhile, on the domestic front, the official apparatus tries hard to convince us that we live in an oasis of national sovereignty, where the government is in charge, and the people, well, they're on its side. Across the Rio Grande, things look radically different. Uncle Sam got tired of evasions and polite smiles and has decided to speed things up. The United States suddenly moved up the political timeline and has given Claudia Sheinbaum a reality check that has shaken her country and her presidency. How beautiful innocence is, not to say foolishness, especially when it comes wrapped with the presidential sash. For 15 whole days, the tone of the morning press conferences was a monologue of wounded dignity and legal demands. Let's see, where is the evidence? Let them present it. We can't violate sovereignty like that, the inept president kept repeating with that robotic firmness that characterizes her so much, defending the Morena officials from Sinaloa with all her might, who were accused by the always subtle and unpredictable government of Donald Trump. But as fate would have it, the evidence didn't need to be sent by courier or go through the cumbersome diplomatic channels. They arrived on their own, on foot, and with their hands up, straight to the doorstep of the U.S. justice system. In a clear disregard for the speeches about national sovereignty coming out of the National Palace, two of the closest collaborators of the narco-governor Ruben Rocha Moya decided that the climate in New York is much healthier than that of Culiacan during extradition season. Rodriguez and Chamoya decided that the climate in New York is much healthier than that of Culiacan during extradition season. Retired Gerardo Merida Sanchez, until recently the Secretary of Public Security of Sinaloa, and Enrique Diaz-Vega, the genius of state finances, voluntarily turned themselves in to the United States authorities. Merida Sanchez crossed through the Nogales checkpoint, and military sources suggest that the Mexican High Command operated behind the scenes to ensure the handover was clean, seeking to mitigate institutional damage. The general is in a cell at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, sharing the neighborhood with figures like Ismael El Mayo Zambada, Rafael Caro Quintero, and even Nicolas Maduro himself. Pure celebrity, that we can't deny. On the other hand, we have Enrique Diaz-Vega, the man who managed Sinaloa's checkbook between 2021 and 2024. The U.S. justice system points out that this financial genius, along with Senator Enrique Insunza, helped put compliant officials in place to protect the operations of Colombians. And where does Mrs. Claudia stand in this picture? Well, with that fancy sovereignty defense gown torn and trailing on the floor. While she insisted that they were victims of a smear campaign, those she defended were already signing cooperation agreements in Manhattan to save their own necks. Criminals care very little about the nation's sovereignty or the reputation of the office. When things get tough, the only sovereignty they defend is their own freedom. To make matters worse, the New York Times leaked that Trump's Department of Justice ordered its prosecutors to apply anti-terrorism laws and triple the charges against Mexican narco-politicians. Akash Singh, Deputy Assistant Attorney General, made it very clear he doesn't care if people in Mexico feel offended, humiliated, or embarrassed in the process. That's just the icing on the cake. Faced with such a situation, Claudia Sheinbaum's response was to post a beautiful photo on social media, showing a big smile after a cordial phone call with Trump. We have to stay optimistic, even if the ship is sinking. And the one who just couldn't hold back tears of frustration was the champion of consistency, Gerardo Fernandez Noroña, the so-called Changoleon. This bastard threw a monumental tantrum against the security cabinet and against Omar Garcia Garfuch. His complaint wasn't that we had criminal narco-politicians running a state. No, sir, his outrage lies in the fact that the Mexican government didn't watch them or detain them enough to prevent them from crossing the border. How could they let them go? They'll go over there and reveal everything, he exclaimed desperately. An absolute gem of national rhetoric. The concern isn't the crime, but that the criminal confesses before the wrong judge. This bastard has no shame, seriously. The Trump administration considers this a major national security issue, or at least that's their view. What Claudia Sheinbaum decides to do with the hot potato named Ruben Rocha Moya and the rest of the Sinaloa officials accused by the Southern District of New York, that agency, which Claudia underestimates, is going to define, with no room for error, the entire future of her government and even her own personal future in the power game. There is no longer any room for pretending or for kicking the can down the road. The cards are on the table and the game has become extremely serious. To grasp the seriousness of what is happening, it's worth paying attention to what is being said from the White House, where the decisions that truly change the course of the planet are made while the rest of the world sleeps. Patience for the official rhetoric seems to have completely run out. In Washington, a damning phrase has been uttered that should wipe the smile off the face of anyone in the security cabinet. If the president of Mexico doesn't finally take the right side of history once and for all, she will end up being a short-lived president. That is to say, her government won't last long, even forcing her to resign. It's that clear and that brutal. We have Claudia Sheinbaum, who, in the scandalous case of the narco-governor Ruben Rocha Moya, has decided to tie her fate to him, openly and publicly taking his side. It's an all-out defense that defies all damage control logic and forces us to ask ourselves, what does Rocha Moya know, or what commitments are so great that they force Ms. Sheinbaum to sacrifice her own international credibility to protect him? I think we all know the answer. I always said it here. Time and reality would end up proving us right. The truth is, I didn't think it would be this soon, but fortunately things are falling into place. So, Claudia, who turned out to be on the right side of history? Well, dear discerning and well-informed audience, there you have it. The theater of national politics continues to offer daily performances with sold-out tickets. But the actors seem to forget that the audience outside doesn't fall for cheap magic tricks. As long as they keep repeating at the presidential palace that everything is going wonderfully and that there is no evidence, the outside reality will keep tightening the screws until the script breaks completely. But don't worry, as long as the comedy continues, we'll be here to tell things as they are, without fear. And to remind you that, at the end of the day, the cost of truth is always less than the price of complicity. Let's not let our guard down. This is just the beginning. There's still a long way to go and many more rats still need to be brought down. We are at war, Mexico against Morena. What do you think? I'll read your comments. Remember that you can make your donations via PayPal. You can find the information in the comments section. Thanks to you, this channel is still active. It's very important to subscribe, like, and press the bell to receive notifications every time there's new content. Thank you.